welcome to the show. I am so excited about this conversation. Today we have all three co-founders of Daily Paper on. Welcome, guys. Why don't we start off by each of you introducing yourself and, a little bit about what you do at Daily Paper.
Cool. My name is Abderrahmane Trabsini. I'm one of the co-founders of Daily Paper, and my main mission is doing the design work.
Hussein.
My name is Hussein. My name is Hussein Suleiman. I'm one of the co-founders of Daily Paper, and I'm mainly focused on the marketing side of things.
Awesome. So you guys' story really starts way back in 2008, even before, you had a retail store. Can you take us back and tell us what was going on in 2008 and what you guys were doing back then?
Daily Paper was a blog at first. Some people don't know that. Before we started doing fashion, it was a blog. And the blog was about the lifestyle in Amsterdam, compared to what Bobby Hundreds did in LA, street etiquette in New York. And we wanted to do that with Amsterdam. So we highlighted stuff that we liked in terms of music, fashion, events. And eventually we started to make merchandise for our blog. So we bought American Apparel blanks and we print our logo on it. And we sold it to our friends and family, and that kind of snowballed. Eventually people were more interested in the clothing than the blog. And for us, it was like a business opportunity to start doing fashion. And we made that decision in 2010 to stop with the blog and fully focus on fashion. And in 2012, we released our first collection of 5 t-shirts. And that was the start of our journey.
That's awesome. So as you guys were, I think this is kind of a trend, is to do this audience first kind of building of a business. Is with the blog, then you had an audience that you could say, hey, now we have these products. And they were like, whoa, yeah, this is what we want from you guys. From that, how did you then decide, you could have stayed fully online, you could have only sold things online, but you decided to open an entire retail store in Amsterdam. Hussein, why did you guys decide to go that route? Why did you decide to actually take the step into retail?
The first thing that we actually wanted to do is we wanted to get our clothing sold in other retail stores and in boutiques that were mainly selling sneakers and like-minded brands. So the first step that we did was approach other retailers and ask them hey, would you want to sell Daily Paper? Some of them said yes, most of them said no, and but we just continued on doing this and going further with pushing our product to these wholesale channels, and eventually once we were in some of these stores, we liked it, but we always got a very small section in the store, or maybe a half a rack to showcase our ideas or our vision. And I never felt like that really, gave a right representation of what we were about as a brand. And so from early on, we knew that the best way to communicate to our consumers is by creating a world where our consumers could shop, whether that's our .com or whether that is our retail store. And we, 2016, which is 4 years after we officially launched, that's when we started our first store. We opened in April 2016, and it's crazy. It's almost it's already 5 years in April.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So mind you, when we started the whole blog period and founded the brand, pushing your brand through wholesale was more or less also good for brand awareness, and you got more or less validated in the industry if you were sold in specific retail stores. So we use that as a vehicle to push out the brand, build a community as well. And from there on, create a wider universe on our own channels. It also gained us more funds to invest in, for example, a proper working website.
Yeah. Now, you guys both just mentioned something that I think is really interesting, that you're calling Daily Paper a world or a universe. It's not so much like it's a store or a t-shirt or a brand. It's this entire world that you've created. And something that I've seen a lot is Daily Paper has been said to be kind of a reflection of you three founders. Can you explain really what that means and how that reflection of your past, your culture, your history translates into clothing?
So all three of us have an African background, but we all grew up in a Western country, the Netherlands, and we know we feel like we're like cross-cultural kids. I mean, we have an African background, but we grew up in a Western society. So how do we adapt as kids growing up with two different cultures? And that actually inspired us to do a brand that's actually close to us, but in a modern way, in our way. We didn't want to make like traditional clothing. We actually wanted to make clothing that we can use, that we can wear every day with our twist, and spreading out that story and focusing on the storytelling about what the brand is about. People really like could relate to the story and kind of feel safe. That's why Daily Paper is it's such a lifestyle brand, because it's not about only the clothing. It's about like what we have, our message for the brand. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what is that story that you're trying to tell with your clothes? Like, what is the emotion that your fans feel when they put on Daily Paper clothes or when they go into the store? What is that story that's really coming out of it?
I think it's championing African culture and showing that there's a lot of great things happening now in Africa. We're not really focused about what was back in the days or the old tribes. It's about really like that Afrofuturism, and that's definitely our drive to show people that Africa is also a very progressive continent, and a lot of cool things are happening, and that's why we want to highlight it. We also work with a lot of like African creatives. We try to do most of our campaigns in Africa to show people like we want to change the perception of how people see Africa.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, back to the retail location in Amsterdam. Something like we mentioned, it's a world, it's a universe. Something you did in that retail store was also include a barbershop and a sneaker section into the store. So it's not just clothes; it's like this whole location that you can come in and kind of almost recreate yourself as a consumer. You can come in and get a nice haircut. You can get sneakers. You can get a whole new outfit and almost walk out as a new person, or you're carrying a new story. Why this takes a lot of extra work other than just a retail store. So why did you guys take that extra step in the very first retail store?
Actually, like a lot of these things actually happen very natural and organic. So when we saw that, the first time when we looked at what is now the Daily Paper store, we saw a building that was huge. For us at the time, we didn't have like a lot of clothes to sell, not as much as we have right now. Our product offering was a lot less in 2016 than it is right now. So we saw this building, and it was big. And what we said is like, okay, what if we put like a wall in the middle of the store and divide it into two spaces? One space in the back is going to be our office. The other space in the front is going to be our retail store. So if somebody comes in, we can help them. And this is really like the beginning of like our retail journey. And we had that. We had the office in the back, two tables, really like a small team. And whenever somebody of the retail staff needed extra help, we would walk to the front and actually help the consumers as well. Eventually, we would also keep our stock there. And as our online sales were growing, the stock also kept growing. So we all of a sudden we were just working in our stock room basically. And so around that time, we kind of like decided like, hey, we need to relocate our office. We need like a bigger space. We left that space, and once that space was empty, it was literally like an empty white box of with literally like two tables. We had like a barber, a friend of ours, and he was cutting all of us at a barbershop where he used to work at, and then we started asking him like, hey, instead of us coming to your barbershop, don't you like maybe like cut us all here in the back. And that was the first thing that was actually started happening. Like he would come after his work, or like quit the day early and just cut us in the back of the store. And that's when the first conversation came. Like, hey, actually, we don't have an office here anymore. We should make this space actually a barbershop, so more people can actually come here and get together. And I think that was like at that time a very smart thing for us to do,
Yeah.
because now people would come into the store not necessarily to buy clothes, because like you don't have to buy clothes every 2 weeks, but most guys, like, we get our haircut every 2 to 3 weeks. So now we had like the store becoming like a vibrant place where community would come, even if they did not like the products that we were offering, or they did not want to buy products at that moment. They would still come just for the energy,
Yeah.
to get together with other people. And what we started to see was our store was always full, not necessarily with consumers, but like with like tastemakers from Amsterdam that were just discussing whatever. It uh, could be like whoever will walk in, and I felt like that had like a very positive effect on the people that will come into the store. Nobody likes to walk into a store and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
you know. And now with this barbershop, we had 3 barbers, cutting,
Wow.
and people waiting in line for them to get a haircut. So like any given moment you come into that store, there was like some energy there, and that eventually, we also um, made some mistakes, like with retail. Like we thought, hey, let's add like a sneaker section here. And because like our idea was like, you come into the store, you get daily favorite clothes, you get your haircut, you get new sneakers, because we were not making sneakers, and
Yeah.
you walk out and you'll be a transformed human being.
Yeah.
And but uh, we it was very difficult to get like the sneaker accounts that we wanted for our store. Not every big sportswear brand was very open with opening up new accounts. This is also a time that a lot of these sportswear accounts were trying to go more direct to consumer. So they were actually looking to cut out more wholesale accounts instead of adding more. And yeah, it was a short trial of the sneaker world that we had. But what we did, but the lucky thing that did happen is us as a brand, we grew. Our product offering grew. Our the people that wanted to buy our clothes grew. So we redecorated our store, and we actually we took out that wall and made our store actually twice as big. And at this moment, when you come to the store, it's only daily paper products.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that it starts with that,
Yeah.
you create this community then, and you create this energy that becomes the brand, and it becomes so much more than just a piece of clothing. It's, from the culture to the energy to the people who are in the store. And then I'm guessing it just creates a lot of brand awareness, because like you're saying, even if somebody doesn't want to buy a product that day, they're still getting in the store and they're getting kind of the daily paper experience, right?
Exactly, exactly. And also we use that space also as like an event space.
Mm.
I don't know if you remember, but before COVID, we used to get together as people, and we used to,
What?
we did the music. Yeah, I know it's a long time ago, but yeah, we used to do that, and we used to do that a lot. And we were just very happy that we had a space that could accommodate so many people. And yeah, and it was always like very well received by the people. Like everybody was always very thankful. Like whenever we would host an event and bring people together,
Yeah.
that's also like a big part of how we communicate, or like how we give back to our community.
Yeah. So, just this year in 2020, where a lot of retail stores are closing, you guys decide to do the opposite and open up a brand new New York City flagship store. I'm curious, coming from Amsterdam, then coming over to the United States and going to New York, why was New York City the choice of this flagship store?
It wasn't our first choice. London was our first choice.
Ah,
We wanted to do something closer to home.
Yeah.
Or maybe Jefferson wants to tell the story.
Yeah, we like to activate the brand by being physically present. So along the way, we've been doing a lot of pop-up stores. So our very first pop-up store that we did was in Berlin around Fashion Week, and that really worked out well because people could really get interacted with us, the brand, etc. So from there on, we used that model and like went on to other cities in the world. So then fast forward, we got into London, where we did a pop up store for 3 months, and yeah, that went very very well for us as well. So we thought like, okay, maybe it's a very good time to open up a permanent store outside of Amsterdam, and yeah, London was obviously not far away from home,
Yeah.
logistic wise and operational wise, it was very doable, and at that time we were ready as a company. So while speaking with different contractors and landlords, visiting different spaces, we were in very far negotiation stages. But unfortunately, we didn't agree on terms. So what happened is that we were looking for a second choice, and the second choice was New York. And we have a huge love for hip hop, especially like Hussein. Hussein, loves the culture in New York, and especially certain artists like Jay-Z.
Yeah.
So his dream was always to live in New York, more or less. And we were like, okay, we're gonna send you out to New York to do some field research and check out the borough, see which area fits us best, and start networking, meeting contractors and landlords. So 2 years ago, Hussein went on a mission and found the right space in the Lower East Side after doing like very well, like good field research in Harlem, in Williamsburg, in like all the boroughs in New York. And the first time he sent images and videos of the store, we were like, okay, looks has a huge potential, but like we actually have to see it in real life. So what happened is that we went there and saw like, okay, this building is actually very special. It's in the Lower East Side. It's on the corner of Delancey and Christie's, and it's a vibrant area within New York, which really resonates the same area where we opened up our store in Amsterdam in Old West. Youth culture is present. The art scene is present there. There's a nightlife, and there's a lot of hospitality events going on there. So and the Lower East Side was also affordable. So
Yeah.
so that made the decision a little bit more easier for us. And after visiting that space, we were convinced, and that's when we actually made it happen.
Yeah. Hussein, while you were kind of going around doing this like field investigation and looking at different areas, what were you looking for in terms of, you're trying to match the physical space and the space around that store with the culture and the energy and the vibe that the daily paper has worked so hard to create around their brand? How were you even thinking through, like, what were you looking for? What signs were you looking for to say, actually, you know what, this is really good? And I have a second question, which is, I read somewhere that the space you guys actually picked was, you found it boarded up, kind of crumbling, it needed to be a little bit rebuilt. So all that putting together, how did you pick that location? What was it?
So usually what like whenever I like try to go anywhere in the world, like I like to connect with the local people who are from there. Uh, th- uh, we're very lucky that we work in the fashion industry where we uh, get to meet people from like all over the world. And I already had friends in New York City, so when I came to New York City, I just started like connecting with the people that I already knew prior,
Yeah.
and just going to places they go to. And I saw that a lot of the places that they were going to, like for drinks or like for shopping, etc., were usually the same areas, even though they did not necessarily live in those
Ah.
areas. And and then I myself started to get my own little routine when I go to New York, or like when I'm in New York, like go to the same type of bars or they go to the same type of shopping districts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that big city becomes very small. It becomes like, oh, this is actually the most of the spots that like-minded people gather, and
Yeah.
and uh, and for me that became the Lower East Side, and not that I do not like the rest of New York, but I feel like a brand like yeah, the brand like Daily Paper, like um, we, I'm not looking at Fifth Avenue for a retail location, or like I'm not looking at Times Square for like a retail location, even though those are like very well visited areas. I like to be where the youth culture
Mm.
gathers. Where are the skaters? Where are the people that want to go for a drink? Where's the younger demographic? Where do they gather? And for me, that was the Lower East Side. I stayed there for the longest out of all my visits to New York, and yeah, to this day, I'm very happy with that choice.
Yeah.
And you are right. Like when I saw that building, it was literally boarded up. My real estate agent did not even want to show me that building. She goes, "Oh yeah, this one's available too." And I was like, "Yo, is this one available? Whoa, what is it? What was in here?" And then she's like, "Yeah, this has been on the market almost like 8 years or something.
Wow.
Like nobody wants this. It's literally falling apart. Like somebody bought it um, with the idea of building something completely new. So the person was never the landlord was never like had an idea of like, let me revamp this building. No, he bought it because he wanted to build something new on top of that, and
Wow.
he could not get the permits to do that. So eventually he was like, okay, if anybody else wants to uh, um, yeah, sorry, my food delivery just came. but yeah, no, if anybody wants it, come and grab it. And so like we started doing like negotiations on the space, and eventually, uh, yeah, we made a decision that I still do not regret of revamping that space and creating like actually like planting our flag in the United States.
Yeah. I love that. Now, if you look at pictures of the store now, the inside of it really evokes this feeling of kind of like a museum. You've got high arches, everything is very clean and white. The accessories are in these kind of glass columns in the store. Listeners, for sure, go look at pictures of the store. It is easily one of the most beautiful stores I've ever seen. What was the strategy behind that design? Like, what energy or vibe are you trying to create in the store with that kind of clean white museum type feeling?
So this project was very different than any other retail project that we would do, mainly because when we saw that building was we had to change everything,
Mm.
and I mean like everything. Like it was not on some, oh yeah, what can we use that is still usable? Like almost nothing was usable. So we literally had to strip it to its bare bones, and that gives us like also like a lot of freedom in designing certain things. If you need to redesign all your walls or all your we we there was this one moment where we took out our whole roof and we redid
Wow.
our roof.
Yeah.
So I could literally, if I looked up, I could see the sky. That much work we did on that building, and with that type of construction, you can literally say like, okay, if I could design something, like how would it look like, and together with our architect, Heather Falding, um, we literally just designed 100% on like how we wanted that building to look like, and that's the outcome of it.
Yeah. Now, Abdir, since you're kind of in that design world, from your perspective, what was the how did you make those design choices? How did you pick, we're going to do it this way, we're going to make it feel this way? How did you translate the visual identity of the brand into an actual physical space?
To be honest, like we all made the decision, and for us, it was very important to explain the DNA of Daily Paper to Heather, for her to translate it into like the interior design. And for example, like our facade is like with the Arizona cans, and we really wanted to have like a African beadwork, but in a futuristic way. So it has to be in a pattern that it looks like very African, but if you look closely, it's like cans. So that gives that futuristic feeling. And even if you look at the gable, it's like the inspiration is the Dutch houses. So the outside is like a Dutch gable. And if you look at the inside, we used a lot of our ceilings have bamboo. We created an amazing mosaic, which has a very deep meaning. I mean, we registered our company on the 1st of April, and we made a design that on that day when the stars aligned on a specific moment when we registered, and we made a mosaic out of it. We made custom chairs with Fat Boy. Back to what we initially started, like creating a space where next to shopping, you can also hang out there. So on our second floor, we have a coffee bar. On the top floor, we have a rooftop. So we actually expanded. We actually made a 2.0 version of our first store, and we actually create. It's finally like we finally have a blueprint for all our future retail. Like spoiler, like we're working on our London store, and that's going to be in translation of our New York store. And I'm very happy that we did our retail in Amsterdam at first, because we learned a lot of it. I mean, you just mentioned we have like those glass displays, but the more the brand grew, the more we expanded in our accessories, and we found it very hard to like visual merchandise our accessories in our Amsterdam store. So all those lessons we learned from our Amsterdam store, we incorporated in our New York store. So I'm not going to take all design credit. Heather did an amazing job, and we made sure that it's really a reflection of our brand. And I'm very happy.
I have to ask the question. Listeners, if you, like I said, go look at the store. The entire front of the store looks like this beadwork. And like you mentioned, Abder, it's actually these Arizona tea cans that are just crushed and created in this mosaic. Did you guys have to hand crush those? And how many cans did you have to go through?
We needed, if I'm correct, we needed 4,000.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
We
8,000, my bad.
18,000, and we used 14,000.
Yeah, 18,000. Yes.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, guys. Thanks for correcting me. So, and Jefferson, on his Instagram, he posted the whole process of, it was all handwork. So we had an amazing team that did it manually. There's no machine or whatever. Like, you had to do it manually. So that was a process. But like, I mean, you can see the result. I mean, it's amazing, and it's something unique. It's something eye-catching. And what you just mentioned, like people think it's a museum, but it's actually a retail store. So
yeah. And so, like you mentioned, like the Amsterdam store, you have this kind of community building experiential aspect with the cafe and then the open rooftop, kind of giving it this like clubhouse feel. Jeff, maybe you can answer this question. Why has that been so important to the brand? And why did you feel like you still needed to do that in New York City? You know, especially you guys opened the store in 2020 where gathering is something we can't really do, but you still decided, you know, if we're going to open this physical space, we have to integrate kind of this experiential clubhouse type part of it. Why was that so important to you?
Yeah, that's part of the DNA of the brand, as we are an inclusive brand in every aspect. Like we are a lifestyle platform, not only just in fashion, but also in music and in sports. And with every offline activity that we host, we like to bring like-minded people together. That happens in Amsterdam, but that happens also in all the other pop-up stores around the world. And obviously, looking at the current tendency in the world, I think, unfortunately, it's not possible at this moment of time. But like looking forward, we really think that the store in New York will become like a community hub where all those type of people can come together and not per se just buy clothes and leave. You know, like obviously we would love people to come and buy stuff, but that's not per se the main goal. more or less. We want people to get together, link with like-minded people. And the space will also like service as an educational space. We'll dedicate certain areas to host certain initiatives, work with young talent in and around New York, and also collaborate with local initiatives and other parties. And that's what we've been doing ever since we started. And yeah, that's the answer, more or less.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is in its essence kind of the future of retail. You guys have just been ahead of the future this whole time, which is people want community spaces. They want to do so much more than just walk in, buy a shirt and walk out. They want to connect with people and engage with the founders and engage with the brand and understand the DNA of what they're buying. I think that's a big part of why you guys are so successful. Now, in New York, there's been a lot of staple stores that have closed because of the pandemic. I read somewhere a journalist dubbed kind of the opening of your store as, quote, a breath of fresh air for the downtown kids and fashion enthusiasts. I would actually argue it's a breath of fresh air for that entire neighborhood, if not for kind of all of New York City. And I think it's almost a trend we're seeing in a lot of retail places where, innovative brands are coming in and taking over areas that are crumbling or boarded up or are losing out on kind of these traditional retailers and creating really exciting spaces. Is that kind of the strategy behind what you guys are doing, is reinventing retail a little bit? Or like as you go into London, are you looking in that same area of, we can take a little bit of an area and refresh it and bring an entirely new space to the community?
Yeah, I don't think that's per se our strategy. We're not here in New York trying to pioneer, but like I think it's part of the brand's DNA. We've always been doing that. Even before we had a store, we were always hosting events, bringing people together. And obviously, when we got our physical space to host certain things, everything got bigger and better. But looking at traditional retailers, more or less, they're focused on conversion. So they are not looking into giving the end consumer a certain experience. So like we are also not a chain company. So we don't deal with certain type of pressure. What we are trying to do right now, in my opinion, we're still in an introduction phase of the brand, especially in a new market. And the best way to do that is to open up your universe. And it's not like, okay, come to the store and hi, buy, and see you next time. It's like educating people, make sure they get very well acquainted with the brand, and from there on build on an organic relationship. And again, we're not pioneering, but obviously that's a trend right now, but that's something that we've always been doing as a brand.
Yeah, like I wanted to mention, like even when we started the brand, like for us, networking was very important. Even when we thought about starting a clothing line, we were talking about people in the industry. We went to Paris, Berlin, just to get more information of what we want to do with the brand, and we've been to parties, we've been to events, and we saw like it's very important to have your own community. And that's why we chose the Lower East Side. We could have chose Soho, for example, like our store in Amsterdam. It's in the Old West. People were laughing, like, why would you open in the Old West? But like, we're such a destination shop. We have our own community. So if our community will come to us, regardless where we reside,
Yeah.
And we're daily paper, and that's always been our mindset. Like we don't look what other people are doing, and like Jeff said, we're not pioneering. We're just staying on our own lane and making sure like we with our community.
Yeah. You guys both just said you're not pioneering. I'm gonna argue a little bit that although it's not purposeful, I think you guys are pioneering. I think you're examples of a really beautiful way to build a brand, which is very people and human centric. And I think that's what the world really needs. And especially in 2020, we all need human connection, and we're all kind of begging for it now. So even though it's not on purpose, I want to give you guys the credit of you are like brilliant kind of pioneers, whether you mean to or not, by just focusing on your people. And I think that's something we've learned a lot in the show again and again. So I want to highlight that for the listeners. I only have kind of two more questions for you guys. The first one is, I'm curious about the difference in retail and shopping behaviors between the US and Holland. Have you seen anything very different between those communities? Is there anything that's been surprising, or has it been very similar experiences with the consumers in the two locations?
100%. There's a huge difference. I mean, with our biggest market is Holland, so like a lot of kids in the Dutch market, they see like our usual suspects, our usual like silhouettes and styles. Based on that, they go to the store and like, oh, I've seen this hoodie a few times. I want to have the same hoodie.
Yeah.
And in New York, it's like they're familiar with the brand, they read about it, or like they just saw this beautiful store and they enter and they have their own like taste and their own opinion about it. Like, so they're not choosing something based on something they saw from other people or like based on like, oh, I saw this online and I want. No, they're actually looking at the clothing and picking something they really want or they really like. So for me, it's nice to like it's a new data, you know, like because it's a
Yeah.
whole new market, and based on that, we can see like, okay, which style should we focus in the US market, and same thing in London. I can't wait how people shop there. So
Yeah.
based on that data, we definitely know how to target those specific markets. But I love it. I mean, it would have been boring if we had the same consumers in Amsterdam and New York. So that's why I love it. It's a whole new challenge. It's a whole new ball game, and I can't wait for COVID to be over so we can host like dope events, do like cool activities. That's the whole concept of the rooftop. It's to actually like do amazing events, have great summers, and build the brand. I mean, the way we build it in Amsterdam, we want to build it in New York. But COVID is kind of blocking us at the moment, so we have to be patient. And hopefully next year we can start doing like offline events, because those are my favorites, to actually be with the community, have conversations with them, see people that are like-minded. So yeah, patience.
Can I add something to that as well? Like in terms of like the end consumers, what we've noticed, quite often while we were there, is that they really come into the store frequently and look for new products. So like it's more or less like a drop culture. We've noticed that with other brands around the corner and in and around Manhattan. We definitely learned that okay, product and stock is very important. So right now we are trying to figure out like, okay, how is our calendar going to look for the New York store in terms of drop scheduling? Because like people really came into the store running into the store with their telephone in their hands, like, yo, I saw Hussein or Abderrahmane post this. When is this coming out? You know, so you know, so these are things that we have to adjust our brand to operationally wise. Because like in Amsterdam and in the rest of in Amsterdam, that's where we only have a store. You can like reshuffle the merchandise and like, you know, you don't have the pressure to like release a new product just for the store. And we really noticed that in New York, you really have to dedicate a certain merchandise or a certain collection for a specific audience. And these are things that we're going to incorporate and implement in our operations.
Yeah, so interesting to hear the difference between kind of shopping behaviors between the two cultures based on the knowledge of the brand going into the store and kind of the experience you have before. I loved that. Last question, and Hussein, I'll have you answer this one. What the show is called Resilient Retail. I think we've talked a lot about the resilience of your brand to stay committed to your vision, to who you are, to the DNA of your brand. But what does resilience mean to the daily paper?
For us, it's like, so when I had this conversation with my partners before we were opening New York, I said, hey, it might not go well directly in the first year. It might not go back good in the second year either. But, you know, we're making a commitment for the next, 6, 7 years. And I said, like, we need to give ourselves the time to grow into this new market. So let's not like look at like how much did we do this month, how much did we do that month. No, let's look at it after 5 years or 6 years, and because that is resilient retail. I remember like when we were opening our store in Amsterdam, and a lot of people were telling us like, "Oh, I don't think it's a smart decision to open up in Old West," but we did that anyways. And the first couple of months were good, but then after that it was going not so good, and we were not making the sales
Yeah.
that we were hoping that we would get. And there were days that people would come into the store, but we made like one sale, and but we stayed in that space, and we continued working, growing the brand, and eventually now that store every day when I go there is full. And this is in Amsterdam. And I
Yeah.
think we should give ourselves also the same patience when we enter a new market. We should not always expect it to go well directly from the moment we get there, but let's open and let's build, and we'll see from there.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for spending the time with me today. I am so excited for watching your brand continue to grow. Such an interesting and I think creative way and authentic way to grow a brand and to keep building in the retail space. I think you guys are doing incredible things for retail in general. So thank you again for being on the show. This has been so much fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.